Good afternoon. The next item of business is Scottish Parliamentary Corporate Body Questions, and at question number 1, I call Mark Ruskell.
Thank you very much. To ask the Scottish Parliament Corporate Body, further to the response to question S600450, what the findings were of the review of the terms and conditions of staff employed by MSPs, particularly in relation to parental leave policies.
Jackson Carney.
I thank Mr Ruskell for his question. I'm sorry to my colleague here whose stick I've just knocked off its plinth, and for his continuing interest in this matter. While there has been a delay, and I acknowledge that, to the anticipated timescale for considering this matter, the corporate body remains committed to carrying out a review of terms and conditions for member staff. And we will now consider the matter during the course of this year. While I can't give any commitments on the outcomes of this review, the corporate body undertakes to ensure that members and their staff are provided with a full update as soon as possible after we have considered. Any changes that the SPCB may agree will be implemented in time for the commencement of the next session of Parliament.
Mark Ruskell.
Well, can I thank the member for that confirmation that work is underway. I did attend the dad strike that was outside of Parliament last week, which was a great event actually. It brought together families from across Scotland who were concerned about the lack of parental leave policies more widely in society, particularly paternity leave. And I was talking to them about the arrangements that we have here and the fact that we only have within our budgets as MSPs the provision to enable fathers and non-birthing partners 2 weeks of paternity leave or partner leave. And I felt a bit embarrassed, really, because I know what the law says. The law says 2 weeks, but I do think that public institutions like this Parliament can and should go a lot further than that. And I do reflect on my own experiences of only having 2 weeks of the birth of my own 2 sons, and it's just not enough. So I really feel that this is a time for this Parliament to lead corporately on this and to really show leadership. So I accept the point made by the member that the intention, the hope is to have something more all-encompassing in place by the start of next session. But I would simply reiterate the point that having a bit more certainty and a bit more update to members on that would be really good, because this is a fantastic place for people to work. Could be a wee bit better if we had a bit more provision for parental leave.
Jackson Carney.
I think that's a perfectly reasonable request from Mr Ruskell. The corporate body, we wouldn't want to prejudge the outcome of our discussions, but I think we do understand that in respect of our fellow Westminster and Senate colleagues, our own provision is currently not as generous. I can confirm that we will be considering the terms and conditions of staff employed by comparator employees, and amongst others will be these other parliaments, and the cost and productivity implications of increasing leave entitlements under the minimum terms and conditions. Of course, it is open to MSPs where budget provides to offer any enhanced leave that they so choose from within the provision that they have. But I recognise that's not the route or the ideal route by which these matters should be addressed, and we hope to come back to Parliament in due course.
And supplementary, Martin Whitfield.
I'm very grateful, Deputy Presiding Officer. And can I thank Jackson Carlo for the answer to the primary question, which is very, very hopeful, particularly with the ongoing consideration that's been undertaken. This Parliament very much values itself as a family-friendly Parliament, and we have a dichotomy in the sense that we have parliamentary staff, but we also have the MSP staff that we're speaking about today. So looking specifically at MSP staff, is the member able to say anything about the challenges that shared parental leave cause, where a nomination can be made to displace up to 50 weeks of the leave to the other partner, and the challenges that that's faced members when it's been requested of us by our staff?
Jackson Carney.
Can I thank Mr Whitfield for that question? And yes, indeed, other benefits in relation to maternity, paternity and adoption leave, member staff can take shared parental leave and pay. Now, shared parental leave enables a member of staff and their partner as co-parents to share leave and pay entitlements which are otherwise available to the birth mother under the maternity policy. And when shared parental leave is applied for, the mother or primary carer of a child can convert to up to 50 weeks, as Mr Whitfield suggests, of their 52-week maternity or adoption leave entitlement to the shared parental leave and share this with their partner. Now, this enables fathers or primary carers to take extended unpaid leave to care for their child. This, of course, is a separate provision over and above that which I think Mr Ruskell is alluding to, which the corporate body will also look at. But it does try to, in the round, I hope, ensure that we are a family-friendly parliament and that we have policies which reflect that.
Question number 2, Patrick Harvey.
To ask the Scottish Parliament corporate body what responses have been received from LGBTQ+ staff or organisations that it has consulted with or been contacted by since the announcement of its interim policy on Parliament facilities following the UK Supreme Court ruling.
Can I thank Mr Harvey for the question? The corporate body has received correspondence from 5 organisations and individuals since it implemented its interim stance on facilities at Holyrood to fulfil its legal responsibilities as an employer, workplace provider, service provider and public authority. The member will be aware of letters made public by the Good Law Project and Scottish Trans and Equality Network. Otherwise, SPCB officials have responded directly to organisations, but respecting the confidentiality of that correspondence.
Patrick Harvey.
Thank you. In previous discussions in the Chamber and in a letter to me, the corporate body has said that it has been and remains committed to providing an inclusive environment, and then said the SPCB's intention is that everyone should feel welcome and included at Holyrood. But the letter that Jackson Carlaw refers to from the Equality Network and Scottish Trans demonstrates that the opposite is the case. They say this change will make trans people feel significantly less welcome at Parliament. And they go on to say we cannot understand why this decision has been described as one that will bring confidence, privacy and dignity to everyone. It will not do so for trans people. It will exclude us and segregate us in the heart of Scotland's democracy. And I'm also aware that the response to colleagues in the staff union representing staff in the Scottish Green Parliamentary Group has also not addressed the substantive points they raised. They say it didn't address the lack of initial consultation, specific negative impact on trans staff members or on gender non-conforming people, the violation of privacy and dignity, criticism of the EQIA and other points. Given then that the
Mr Harvey, could we get to the question? You're well over your allotted time.
Given that the corporate body is now well aware that it has not achieved its intention of an inclusive workplace, surely it is time for the corporate body to think again and rescind this unclear and unfair interim position until a full position can be consulted on properly.
Jackson Carlaw.
I think there are 2 points I would make. And the first, I think it is important to state that the corporate body is not a committee of the Parliament. Committees of this Parliament and in the parliamentary chamber itself, politicians are able to debate the rights and wrongs of any ruling that is made by the Supreme Court or by any other organisation. But the corporate body is an executive body with legal responsibilities and the personal liability of the members who sit on it. Our job, even though we are politicians, is not to debate the politics of an issue, but to ensure that we are implementing the law as the law is communicated to us. Now, having said that, we recognise the interim stance to fulfil those legal responsibilities is a change. So let me acknowledge on behalf of the SPCB and to Mr Harvey that for some this has proved both upsetting and a cause for anxiety and concern for their own well-being. With this in mind, managers were asked to immediately engage with their teams to discuss the interim stance, to identify any concerns about its impact and to support individuals who may be personally affected. This is an ongoing process and we are committed to the wider well-being of our staff, which is embedded in a number of our policies and our management approach. And I understand that the SPC's response to the Supreme Court ruling has been discussed at recent partnership groups, and I'm sure that TUS colleagues will continue to use this forum to raise anything further that they consider would be appropriate for the SPCB to do to support its staff. This morning, the corporate body signed off the next phase of work, looking at how to improve inclusivity for all those with protected characteristics working at visiting Holyrood. We will engage Holyrood pass holders and external organisations representing those with specific protected characteristics as part of this work. It will inform any further changes and take account of the EHRC statutory code once it is finalised later this year.
Supplementary, Cara Mohan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I thank Jackson Carlaw for his clarity on the original question? And it might be helpful for us to understand why SPCB took the decision to introduce changes now, rather than wait for the EHRC statutory guidance.
Jackson Carlo.
Well, as I said a moment ago, it's the corporate body's responsibility, notwithstanding the fact we are politicians elected by this chamber to represent the interests of Parliament and colleagues, but it's our responsibility to fulfil the legal obligations as an employer, service provider, workplace provider and as an organisation subject to the public sector equality duty. Recognising that the Supreme Court's judgment had immediate legal effect, something I understand was confirmed again to members this morning in a briefing, officials took urgent steps following its publication to review the judgment in detail and consider its implications for services and facilities at Holyrood. Now, this is in line with the EHRC's statement that those duties under the Equality 2010 Act need to comply with the law and should be urgently reviewing what changes need to be made to their existing policies and practices. It's a matter for others to determine how they address their responsibilities.
Supplementary, Pam Gosar.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Let's be clear, we are talking about the UK Supreme Court here. The law is the law, nobody is above it. This morning, the EHRC was on a call to MSPs and stated very clearly that public bodies should comply with the law now. Sex Matters have warned that they will come after organisations refusing to follow the ruling. This will once again leave the taxpayers footing the bill. Therefore, will the Parliament commit to following and implementing the interim update issued by the EHRC on the protection of single-sex spaces?
Jackson Carlo.
Yes, I mean, it's up to other organisations how they respond, but it is the responsibility of the corporate body to implement the law and the advice that we receive. That is what the corporate body's duty is. I've said, of course, that it's an interim position and that there's a consultation taking place, that we remain committed to inclusivity and that that is the primary objective of the work that we are doing. Supplementary,
Mercedes Piava.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And can I start by apologising to you and everybody present for my unacceptable lateness? Following the SPCB announcement regarding the interim position on the Supreme Court ruling, the PCS Scottish Parliament Branch Executive Committee expressed their concerns about what they say was a complete lack of consultation with the recognised trade unions. Now, the SPCB claims that they are consulting with the unions, but I'm told this is categorically untrue, that trade unions have not been consulted on the interim position. So can I ask when meaningful consultation will take place with the trade unions on this position? Thank you.
Jackson Carter.
Well, our obligation was, based on the legal advice we received, to implement the ruling as was advised to us. We have today, as I said earlier, now signed off the next phase of the consultation by the corporate body. We announced the interim stance. We agreed to conduct a consultation. Together with officials, the corporate body has been considering its approach to that consultation, and earlier today we agreed the next steps. Various activities were already underway to review our facilities and policies to better support those with protected characteristics under the Equality Act. These various work streams, including the consultation, will now come together under the Inclusive Parliament review. We will engage Holyrood pass holders and external organisations representing those with specific protected characteristics as part of this work.
And supplementary, Alexander Burnett.
It feels like some members are seeking to turn the Parliament's management board into a university debating society, unfortunately, par for the course in the Scottish Parliament. So does the member agree that the Scottish Parliament, as an institution, must always take the necessary steps to abide by the law?
Jackson Carlo.
That is the responsibility of the corporate body. As I said earlier, there are committees, there is this chamber, where the issues, the political issues surrounding these judgments can be debated. But the corporate body is an executive body liable and responsible for implementing the law as it stands. And that is what the corporate body have done.
Thank you, Mr Carlo. That concludes Scottish Parliamentary Corporate Body questions. There will be a very short pause before we move on to the next item of business to allow frontbench teams to change position. Thank you.